What's up, guys? Welcome back to Between the Pylons. I'm John Camacho. Thank you so much for watching. And guys, today we are doing my running back rankings. This is my second rankings video on this channel. Just did my wide receiver rankings. You should check that out as well. This rankings video, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put every single running back in a playlist. You can also check out my wide receiver playlist or just my 2021 draft profile playlist that has every single player on it. All right, so that I've done a video on, at least in the 2021 season. So for every player that I'm going to talk about in this video, I did do a draft profile on. You can check out the description. There's a link to all of those videos in the description. So yeah, we covered all our bases there. Let's get right into the rankings, right? And I'm gonna pull up this graphic here. And guys, listen, I understand this is a little bit different. The biggest thing you're gonna see, the biggest surprise maybe for people, is the fact that I do have Travis Etienne a good bit ahead of Najee Harris. All right, Najee Harris and Travis Etienne still my number 1 and 2 running back, but Travis Etienne to me is the clear-cut number 1, and I don't think it's that close, right? Significant difference between these two as far as my grades, 6.94 and a 6.28. That is a huge difference in my rankings. That's a huge difference in my grades. All right, so at tier 1, he is in a tier by himself. I don't believe there's anybody else as good as Travis Etienne in this draft. I think he's the only guy that I think is worth the first-round pick. I don't know if he goes first round. Certainly the only guy that I think is worth it. I don't think he is scheme dependent. I've heard people say that. I don't think so. I'm sorry. I just don't. I think he could go pretty much. Obviously, there's schemes that fit him best. That's true with every player. But I think he can pretty much go anywhere and be a difference maker almost immediately. I think he is just a notch above everybody else. That's my take. I did a draft profile very early on in the process talking about him. Moving right along to Najee Harris. And listen, Najee Harris was the first draft profile I did on. And I'll be honest, if I would wish I could remake that video. I really do. I think I could have explained things a little bit better. I think I could have done a better job of explaining my point. I certainly think I failed at times in that video. I think the essence of what I'm saying is still there, but I probably could have done a better job on the video. So hey, it was my first video of the year, and I kind of wish I would have waited a minute to post that and maybe reworked it a little bit, but I didn't, and that's totally okay. Lucky for me, it's one of the most viewed videos I have on my channel so far. So, you know, it is what it is. Still a huge fan of Najee Harris. Listen, I don't want to take anything away from him. The one thing that knocked me down for him, the one issue that I had was I didn't think his pure explosiveness from like first 2 steps, are you 0 to 60 in the first 2 steps? No. Thought he had a little bit of a build-up speed. It was minor. It was a little bit, but like to me, that was like the biggest difference between him and an Etienne. I know like the grade says there's much more of a difference, but to me, that was the biggest thing. That's the biggest thing I can point to and be like, okay, this is the unifying reason why I would not take Najee Harris over Travis Etienne. I do think his startup speed, his build-up speed is a little bit of an issue, right? I don't think he's a guy that would ever fit in like a Kyle Shanahan's offense. Like for me, like, you know what I mean? Like he's not going to fit that outside zone run scheme. So listen, I love him. We're splitting hairs here for sure, but I do see him as a notch below Travis Etienne. That's why I put Travis Etienne in the tier 1. And then tier 2, I do have Najee Harris, Javonte Williams, and Kenneth Gainwell. And honestly, if I was going to split hairs again, it's Javonte Williams and Najee Harris who are very close, right? You can see it 6.26 and 6.28. Javonte Williams was almost my number 2 running back in this class. I'm a big fan. I really am. I think he has everything. I think he has the speed. I think he has the power. I think he has everything that I want to see. You know, you could say honestly, same kind of thing. Like I would say Najee Harris is a little faster, more athletic in a lot of different ways. But there's a lot of things I like about Javonte Williams. I think he has a little bit more like burst from, you know, and that lateral quickness, I would say. And Najee Harris certainly has lateral quickness. I don't want to take anything away from him, but just comparing the two apples to apples, I would say there's a little bit more for Javonte Williams. And then Kenneth Gainwell. Kenneth Gainwell to me is CEH light. He really is. Like, he's just a ball of muscle who can, you know, he runs very well between the tackles. I feel like he's explosive as hell. It's tough to bring him down. I was a big fan of CEH last year, and I missed on him a little bit as far as, like, you know, how productive he was year 1 in the NFL. I will say I do think, the system, just didn't give him the opportunity that maybe he deserved, but also like he didn't run between the tackles as well as I expected him to at the NFL level. He didn't. So Kenneth Gainwell, again, I still like him, and I compare him to CH, which maybe that gives a bad taste in some people's mouth. It shouldn't. I still think he's a really good player. If CH gets drafted mid-second round, nobody hates him. But because he was drafted 32 overall and didn't, underperform compared to some of the other rookie running backs last year, everyone's going to hate on him a little bit more. So with that being said, Kenneth Gainwell is certainly still a second-round player to me. I certainly think he should go early day two. I have no problem, somewhere in that second-round range, a team is going to pick him. I really believe that. And then for me, like, I wish I could put tier 3 and put no players in tier 3. Look at the fall. To me, Michael Carter is a very, very good player, but I do see him as somewhere in that early day 3 range. I see him as a 4th-round pick. I really do. I look at everybody else on this list, and honestly, tier 3 could probably go even farther. Like, the difference between Trey Sermon and 11 and 12, not a big difference. I just only wanted to do top 10 because I didn't really want to talk about the 15th best running back in this class, because I don't really think it's a great running back class. Honestly, I could have done top 5 and felt really, really good about my rankings and not had to talk about these other guys, but I'm very happy to. I've done a draft profile on every single one of these guys. There's certainly some upside for every one of these guys. People are going to notice. I'm going to kind of go over the place. They're going to notice a Trey Sermon at 10 and maybe be surprised by that. Yeah, I see some upside there, but I look at Trey Sermon as a guy who fits into a rotation in the NFL. I don't see him as like a difference maker at the NFL level. I see him in that 5th, 6th round range. I really do. Javion Hawkins and Puka Williams. I know I'm talking about 9 and 6, but literally the difference between 5.50 and 5.52. That's how close these guys are on my rankings, right? Those guys are very similar to me specifically, though, because they're just shot out of a cannon, explosive guys that are very undersized and just going to have to find the right scheme, fits perfectly in that Kyle Shanahan offense that I was talking about earlier. Then you look at like a Rhamondre Stevenson. Rhamondre Stevenson, and I talked about in my draft profile, he is the guy that I think has the best chance of going day 3, or excuse me, he is the guy that I think has the best chance of going day 2, because I look at him as a dude who has the size and the physicality that some teams are just going to be looking for. Like, everybody else is kind of on the smaller end, or at least like average running back size. Rhamondre Stevenson is like 6'1", 225, and just a hammer. He is a jackhammer in that run game. He will pound you. And honestly, his biggest problem is that he didn't lay the boom enough in college, and I think that's going to have to be coached up a little bit. And like, hey man, you're a big dude. You need to be punishing these linebackers and corners and safeties that are trying to tackle you. You need to punish them every single play, because if you're not, you are doing a disservice to who you are as a human. All right, so that's kind of how I see Rhamondre Stevenson, and I do think, like, for that reason, for the difference in like what he is physically, I do think it bumps him up. He could easily be the 5th running back off the board. And really, the way I see this draft going, I see 1 through 4 on my rankings: Travis Etienne, Najee Harris, Javonte Williams, and Kenneth Gainwell, all going, probably 2nd round. I don't think a running back goes in the 1st round. If one does, that's fine. Either Najee Harris, Etienne goes in the 1st round. Okay, cool. And then those 4 guys, I do think get drafted somewhere in that order, top 4. Okay. And then I do think there's going to be a drop. I think you're going to see a significant gap between that 4th and 5th running back drafted. And look, I could totally be wrong about this, but that's how I see it happening. And I think late 3rd, early 4th is where the next running back goes. I think it probably should be a Michael Carter based on my rankings, but I could easily see it being a Rhamondre Stevenson, who, definitely falls into this like clump of running backs, but he is different as far as like who he is as a player and how he's built physically, as I already said. So I see him as a guy who could easily be drafted a little bit maybe ahead of where I think people are going to have him ranked, or even the way he is, like, maybe probably overdrafted, to be totally honest. But based on the fact that there's really nobody else like Rhamondre Stevenson in the draft, teams are going to like it. There might be that right team that just is valuing that type of running back, looking for that type of running back, and pulls the trigger, even though maybe it's a little bit more of a reach for conventional rankings and all those other things. And just really quick, I want to touch on a couple guys that maybe people think should have been in my top 15 or top 10. And listen, I've done draft profiles on all these guys, and I'm just going to go kind of down the line of guys that I've done a draft profile on. Chubba Hubbard is my 16th overall running back. I did a draft profile on him. I'm not high on him. I'm sorry. I know he had that awesome season at Oklahoma State. I get it. It's just not, it's not my cup of tea as far as who he is as a running back. I just think he's just okay. I think I see him very similarly as I see, you know, a lot of these just a guy type of running backs that come out late in the draft or UDFA guys. He'll stick to a roster. He'll find a spot and definitely be a part of a team for a couple of years. And beyond that, I don't expect a whole lot from him. I'm sorry. That's just how I rank him. Kylan Hill just had too much of an issue with his vision. That was like my big thing. I think there's a lot of upside there for him. And I talked about him. He's my 15th ranked running back, but like vision is a big portion of my grade. And when I don't like your vision, it's going to hurt your rankings, right? So he's a guy that I almost wish I could have put in my top 10 because I certainly see the upside. I really do. But it just, the vision killed me for it. It really did. And then I'm going to jump ahead to 13 at Jarrett Patterson, another guy who's a small school dude, definitely had all the stats. I just didn't see the explosiveness that I think is going to translate to the next level to really think he's going to be anything more than like another just the guy type of guy in the NFL who goes in that day 3 range. You know, we'll see. I certainly went into watching his film thinking that I was going to really like him and think of him as a day 2 type of range guy, because that's what I thought, you know, during the college season, especially last year. I just don't see it for him for whatever reason. Again, I did a draft profile on breaking that down, so you can check that out. But that's the extent. I also did a video on Jermar Jefferson, who I have at 12th overall. There are instances when watching him, it's like, oh shit, he's a top 5 guy. He's a legit, you know, second round running back. And then it's like there are spouts of game where it's like, oh, you know, he's undrafted. He's not the dude at all. So it's like, you know, there's a lot of inconsistency there. I struggle with guys who are inconsistent. So at 12, like, you know, we'll see what happens. But yeah, guys, that is all I have on the running back rankings. This is a weird class. This is a weird year. Not a great running back class, if I'm being totally honest, right? And listen, some people are going to like hate on me a little bit for some of my rankings. I've certainly gotten some pushback from just some of the friends that I've shown my rankings to, and that's totally fine. But at the end of the day, honestly, after my top 4, I do think it falls off a giant cliff. I do. I think there's a lot of guys out there, and there's certainly some upside about a lot of them. There's a lot to like about a lot of these guys that I've mentioned, but there's certainly some flaws as well. I don't think you're getting, you know, top end value, and certainly, hey, some of these guys that maybe are even outside of my top 10 are gonna like find themselves in a perfect situation and find themselves in, you know, a great spot to be a top running back in the league. Like I could see that happening, right? I mean, we saw it last year in Jacksonville, an undrafted guy who I don't think anybody really heard of or talked about, you know, ends up, you know, usurping a Leonard Fournette and being the top running back all year, right? So that could certainly happen. But all right, guys, thank you so much for watching. If you are interested in watching my live stream here on Between the Pylons YouTube channel, you can check that out on the 29th for the first round of the NFL draft. We'll be doing a live stream right here with my co-host, my podcast co-host, Jacob Waters will be right along with me, going through every single pick as it happens, as we get the information on Twitter and other social medias. We're going to be pumping that out. We'll be paying up on some shot bets that we've put together throughout our podcast. It's going to be a lot of fun. Subscribe to the channel if you enjoy draft content and football content, because after the draft, I'm going to be doing my reactions to every single NFL team's draft. All right. So I'm going to be pumping those videos out. And then after that, I have a lot of other cool stuff planned. So get on the journey with me, guys. I really appreciate everybody who has subscribed already. And I would appreciate anybody else who would want to. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Peace.